Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're tuning in from today. Thank you very much for joining us today again this month. So my name is James Fenton Bland. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Global Developer Relations Lead here at Zebra Technologies. And I'm joined today by one of our experts from the ATS, or the Print BU, as it was formerly known, Senior Software Engineer, Stephen C. So just before we kick off, we have a few housekeeping rules to cover. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, please, Stephen. Thank you very much. So first of all, if you haven't already, then I'd like to encourage you to sign up to our developer community. So developer.zebra.com is our developer portal that we redesigned earlier this year, and it has a ton of great developer information on there for you as well as an inbuilt forum where you can come along and ask any questions and engage with our community. We're also active on LinkedIn and Twitter as our main social media platforms. We also have a GitHub account called Zebra Devs, where we post all of our open source demos and repositories. We also just recently released a new developer podcast as well. So all of these sessions, and including this one today as well, are recorded and then uploaded to our YouTube playlist shortly after the event, usually a couple of days. So if there's anything that you've missed from this session, or if you'd like to catch up with it in the future, just go onto YouTube, type in Zebra DevTalk, and you should be redirected to our DevTalk playlist. So we will be taking questions today. All questions will be answered at the end of the session on a first come, first served basis. So if you have any questions throughout, just use the sidebar from GoToWebinar there, and you can put your questions in the chat box. And then Stephen and I will go through those at the end of the session. So just before I hand over to Stephen, as you can see on the screen in front of you, we have a few upcoming events that I'd just like to make you aware of. So next month, our DevTalk will be all around Android 13 from an enterprise developer perspective, and more specifically, a Zebra enterprise developer's perspective. So we'll have Nicola Desault, one of our senior engineers, presenting that talk. We'll go through all things Android and everything that you need to know about the upcoming release. We'll also be in DroidCon, both at Berlin and London. So if you happen to be in the area, please do pop by and say hello. And then most importantly, make sure you mark your diaries for our biannual developer conference, DevCon, which will be taking place in Madrid between September 13th and 15th. So we'll be launching the registration site for that in just a couple of weeks. And there's going to be a ton of great content that we can't wait to share with you. So please do make sure to mark your calendars for that and save the date. We hope to see you there. So that's enough from me with all the sort of housekeeping stuff. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Stephen to take you through the interesting content that he has today. So Stephen, the stage is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are. I'm Stephen C., a senior software engineer at Asset Tracking Solution of Zebra Technology. In today's webinar, we're going to cover the browser print. As everybody knows, the web applications are so pervasive, existing everywhere. So it becomes imperative to be able to print content through the web browser. So that's why we provide the developers a tool called Browser Print to enable printing from Windows MacBooks as well as Android through the browsers. This is a high-level overview of how the browser print look like from the architecture perspective. So there are two parts for the browser print. First is the browser print client apps. It acts as an agent on the local PC, local MacBook, or on Android device. It talks to the printers either through the network or through USB or through the network or Bluetooth if it's Android. The second part of the browser print is the JavaScript library, because JavaScript library is supposed to be hosted on the web server by the application. So when the user to access a web page, the JavaScript library will be downloaded locally on the browser, will start to communicate with the client application on the platform. So the communication between the JavaScript library and the client application are through either HTTP or HTTPS. So it depends on the browser type. So if it's a Chrome or IE or Edge, those two type of browsers require to communicate with the local HTTP server through the HTTPS. If it's on the other browsers, then we can talk to the client app through the HTTP. So with the HTTPS, of course, you need to have a certificate, right? So the certificate is a self-signed certificate. When you install the client app on the desktop computer, either Windows or MacBook, it will automatically generate a self-signed certificate and install that in the on the local computer, and the certificate valid for 3 years. So after 3 years, you need to renew it. So we will cover how to renew the certificate in a later slide. Here I'm going to show you the product page of BrowserPrint. Here is a link. You follow the link, go to our product page of BrowserPrint. There is a list of the downloadables. First of all is the JavaScript and the client app for Windows and the client app for Mac OS X. And then the client app on Android. So you need to install this app on the Android as well. Of course, associates with them are the user guides. As I said in the previous slides, the client app is needed because that's the agent communicates between the JavaScript library and the local connected printers. So we need to have the client apps. Those client apps for Windows and for Mac OS X are written in Java. This is a list of the printers currently supported by the BrowserPrint. From this list, you can see all the tabletop printers, ZT model, and all the desktop printers, ZD model, are supported. Plus the mobile printers like Z2 series are all supported. We also support a couple of legacy printers listed here. The QLN is already been discontinued. IMZ discontinued as well, and also the ZR in Asia or emerging market, and also G series of the printers, as well as those legacy, pretty old printers. You can see the BrowserPrint supports a wide range of our product portfolio. This slide is trying to give you some information about where you can start to renew the certificates. So there are like a separate paths for Windows and also for MacBooks, where you can access the log file as well as the certificate. So the key is store.jks. This is for Windows, and the part is for MacBook. If you delete this file and restart the BrowserPrint client app on your local computer, it will automatically regenerate the self-signed certificate and put them right in this folder. In the same folder, you can check the log files. So if you run into any issues, you may look at the log file. The basic requirements for running the client app on your local computer, you need to ensure the port 9100 and 9101 is not used by any other apps, because those two ports will be used by the client application on Mac and on Windows. The supported browsers on the Mac and Windows include Chrome, Firefox, IE, and Edge, as Safari, as as well as Opera. So you can see from here. And also the connectivity is, of course, on the desktop or laptop computers, the supported connectivity would be network or USB. So the Bluetooth here is not supported in this use case. This is a screenshot of the client app. The client app setting feature allows you to have an overview of what's the current setting for the browser printer. The right side is the client app interface from the Windows. The left side is for Windows. Right side is from Mac. And you can see they have a similar capabilities, right? Like a device, default device. If you click on the change button, it will automatically start auto discovery to find the connected printers either through network or through the USB. And you can choose one as a default. You don't have to choose a default, but you could do that. Okay. And also, if you want to manually add a device, for example, sometimes the connected printer on the network may not be able to discover it due to your network settings. For example, your network may block the multicast packets. So in that case, it cannot be auto-detected by the browser printer, but you still have the access, right? If you know the IP address, you can press the manage button to add the IP address of the printer to the browser printer. So that way you can print to that printer, even though it's not been auto-detected. And also you can control which website can access the local agent, right? So whenever there is somebody initiate somewhere to click on the web page, try to access. Let's put it this way: on the local computer, if somebody wants to access a web page somewhere on the internet and try to connect to the local client app, the client app has the ability to accept it or block it. So it depends on the user preference. On the settings, you can check which side has been accepted, which side has been blocked. So if you don't want a certain site to access the client app on this computer, you can block it from here. Now let's go to the client app on the Android. On the Android, it does the same, but it only supports the Chrome browser on Android. The connectivity supported on the Android device would be network or Bluetooth. The USB, some Android devices provide the USB dongle, as that is not supported. We cannot connect the USB dongle to the printer. And on the Android device, we need to make sure no other app use the 9100 port. So this is a screenshot. This contains the screenshots of the Android app. It has the exact same capability as we have described for the client app on computers, except they have different UI. So the UI design is different, but however, you can have a sense they have the exact same set of, accept the domain, block the domain, and also auto discover the Bluetooth connected or Wi-Fi connected. So if you want to manually add a device, then you have the ability to either add the Bluetooth connected printer or network connected printer on the Android side. So once you download the browser print from our product page and unzip it, then you can find the documentations that are associated with the browser printer. This is the documentation page for the JavaScript library of the browser print. It is hosted on my local PC. You can see the local host with the port number, right? So that's a path. Here, I just want to highlight the associations of the modules versus the specific classes. There are two modules in the JavaScript library. The first module is the browser print module. This module is a basic module, contains those classes like auto discovery method, and also contains the device classes. Those two forms the foundation of the browser print module. So this module, normally we only need this module would be sufficient for us to do the print from the browser. More advanced module is the Zebra module. So Zebra module contains all the rest of the classes. With Zebra module, you can specifically check the status of the printer. I will show you how to do the status check in a later example. If you want to use the Zebra module, you have to first include the browser print module, the basic module, and then add the Zebra module in your JavaScript. And that way, you can use the basic module to discover the printer, and then use the more advanced Zebra module to dive into deeper to get the status and check other infos on the printer, etc. And just want to make sure you have those JavaScript library hosted on a local, hosted on a web server or on a local web server. Like in this webinar, I am using the Apache HTTP local server to host the JavaScript library. Without web server, we may not able to, sometimes you may not able to run the sample of the browser print, which comes with the product. And one last point I want to make is the browser print supports both HTTP and HTTPS. Here, we're not going to cover the HTTPS because that's a part of the web server setup. In the demo, later in this webinar, I only going to show the HTTP because that was hosted locally on my local PC. I have not installed the certificate. And also, I leave that to other topics about how to set the HTTPS for the web server. All right, so let's get to, this is a screenshot of how the JavaScript of browser print access the printers discovered by the base module of the library. Once you downloaded your browser print and installed the client app, that's important on the PC. Without installing the client app, you cannot see the list of the printers being discovered, right? And have this library hosted on the server, and then you can go to the index.html under the sample folder. So that's an embedded example, allows you to get your hands on quickly. So you go to there and click on the index.html, automatically pop up this sample web page, allows you to navigate a lot of features. Here is the high-level description, what each function does. So I'm just want to repeat some of them because the name of the button is too short, but not very descriptive. So get application configuration. So this is to get the client app configuration. So as we talked about, there are client apps stored running locally on your computer. So that's to get the configuration of the local client app. And they send the config label. So this button sends a command, ZPL command to the printer to print out the configuration labels. And send the ZPL label button. This has like a simple barcode. Once you print, click on it, it will send the label to print from the printer. Get status. So this one use the write data to printer method in the JavaScript library, and send the HS ZPL, which is called host status ZPL command to the printer, and it will pop up return a status string of the printer on the screen. And get local device, this is to get a local connected device like a network, USB or Bluetooth, etc. There is a specific API like equivalent to printer discovery API, so which you can discover all those locally connected devices. And this write box allows you to send a sample ZPL command to a printer. So if this command expect a return from the printer, then you could use the read button to read the content out of the printer straight away. And those image print button send a BMP, that's like a monochrome bitmap file, which comes with the browser print package. Once you click on, it will send this file to the printer to print. So send the JPEG file that sends the zebra grid.jpg file to the printer to print it. So those two image files comes with the sample page, or I can show you later on. And the send file is another sample file, come with the sample page, and send this file to the printer to print this contains just one single WC command to get the printer status. Okay, like what we just went through, the upper part of the sample page. What I did in this tutorial, in this webinar, I created my own DevTalk.html because I want to demonstrate how to use the Zebra module. Because the original index.html comes with the browser printer, only demonstrates how to use the browser print module. So this I'm going to show. What I did is I added two more buttons, right? Those two buttons to use the Zebra module. The first button is to get the printer status through the printer class, right? The second button also gets the printer status, but it's through the HUS host status commands. So they are slightly different, but achieve the same goal to get the printer status. How that works is the red arrow points to that's where the get printers use the printer class. So here I want to highlight here is, as you see, it's our first slide. The browser print talks to the local client applications through HTTP or HTTPS. So this means whenever we initiate a code in the JavaScript will send a request, HTTP request to the client. And then the client collects the response, right, from the connected printer and waiting for another request to send us the response back to the JavaScript library. So since we are using that scenario, so every function code is going to be an asynchronous code, right? And also to achieve the asynchronous code, we have to pass in a callback function. So that's why in this code snippet, you can see we pass two callback functions. So first of all, we have this Zebra module, right, included in our JavaScript right here. First, we include the browser print module and then the Zebra module. That within Zebra module, there is a printer class. We use zebra.printer and create a new object using new, and the selected device, which is a variable already been contain the printer already been discovered by the JavaScript by the browser print module. So this selected underscore device is a variable already been initialized by the first part of the sample HTML, right? So we have that object. We start to create the object of the printer based on printer class, and then we call the get status, which means we want to get the status from the printer, right? But how we get the status from the printer? This only returns premises in the JavaScript. Then we need to add two callback functions for successful case and for failure case, right? So that's this is to achieve the asynchronous use case. So because when we say get the printer state, this is return an object of it's a premises of object, which require us to attach two callback functions. Once the two callback functions attached, this will go off, talk to our local connected printer to get a status, and then once that return bikes from the printer, it will start to invoke either status success or status failure use two callback functions. So for the success case, we simply have this status comes in the callback. We just call the get message that will return us the descriptive message about the printer status. And also we can get a binary to check is the printer ready to print, is the printer ready? So that will return a boolean, either true or false, to indicate whether the printer is ready or not. Or we will show that again later. And for the failure case, we simply prompt the user says we got a failure, right? Okay, so that's how we use the printer class from the Zebra module to achieve the printer status. The second button here is to send HS ZPL commands to the printer and expect a return back from the printer to parse this raw status string, and parse that to obtain the printer status. So here I just want to show you this button invokes two API calls. First API call is to write the tilt HS to the printer. The second API call is to read the response back from the printer, right? So you can say in this read status string from the selected printer, in this function, we also add a callback function here, right? We read the status string callback and parse it. And for the error case, we have another callback, right? So what we do is, once we have the raw status string comes back, we use a string to create the object of the zebra.printer.status class object. You pass this in the constructor, right? What it does, it will construct this object, right, and allows us to get the message and also get the printer is ready the boolean as well as descriptive message out of this object of the status class. So it's slightly different than what we saw before. So we simply use the status class as a parser to parse the return of the HS command to achieve getting the printer status. Okay, so we have gone through that through the HTTP hosted HTTP web server on my local PC. If you are interested to test HTTPS, there is a web link we provide publicly to everybody. You can go there, just click on the CAG demo, cagdemo.com. So that will download this sample page, which is slightly different than what we described before, but which does the similar features. So allows you to discover local connected printers and then to print a label, etc. Just be sure to install the client app first, otherwise this list will be empty. Those are the screenshots from the Android device. So from the Android device, you can say when we run the discovery, you can say we get a list of the printers, either connected through boot or through the Wi-Fi, which is network connected, right? And we can access the same exact web page hosted on my local PC through the IP address because they are on the same network, right? To achieve the same feature, like I described, the get status just send the tilt HS command, host status command. So this is the return from the printer. Okay, before we jump to the next slide, let's do some like demo. Okay, this is a documentation page hosted on my local PC, right? This is the HTTPS web server provided by us for people to test the HTTPS capability. I have a USB printer connected, right? If I want to type in and I want to print a label, yeah, that will send the print, it says print completed. You may not be able to say that, right? Because it's remotely connected. I can show you later. I have a printer right here by my side. And also we access the exact same page, right? Hosted on my local PC. If we do a refresh, okay, we got the printer discovered, right? We have this printer, connected through the USB, and also we have a number of printers connected through the network as well, right? We can do the exact same thing, like get a status. If we click on, yeah, we get a raw status string returned from the printer. As I mentioned, through the Zebra module, we can parse this string, right, and derive the printer status based on the raw status string, right? Okay, and this is the sample page with the addition of those two additional buttons I added to the existing sample HTML page. So I gave it a different name, DevTalk.html, right? So if I want to, I select the same printer, right, and click on the button to obtain the status through the printer class. So it says ready, etc., right? And if I click on the second button, which sends the HS status to the printer and parse the string sent back, and then we get the printer status true as well, right? If you are interested, yeah, you can go through this against the source code. Yeah, I have the source code written here. I also want to show you, here is okay, let me try on my local MacBook. So I have a MacBook running here, right? I go to the same, that's the IP address of my local PC. I connect to the same port, and right. So this is the default sample page, right? Comes here, right? But however, I want to access the one with my DevTalk. Okay, so I get those two additional buttons, right? And let me also show you. Okay, I have a Android phone with me. You may be able to see there is a printer right here, right? And the printer is a ZQ320. Let me see if it can discover ZQ320. I know what happened. Yeah, I know what happened. We may not able to get the, because I use a USB hub and through the docking station, somehow it's not discovered through the USB connection. ZQ. Somehow, yeah, at my desktop, I'm right now in the meeting room. In my cube, yeah, I was able to connect through a different docking station, but with this docking station somehow doesn't allow me to detect. Oh well, yeah, we can try a different printer, ZQ10. That's the one connect to my desktop, right? Okay, so we can run the exact same thing. Yeah, all right, and also run get status as well. Okay. Let me try another different approach. Give me 1 second. $67. Okay, let me see if the IP address showed up for this ZQ320 printer. 67. Oh, yeah, unfortunately, even though this printer is connected to the Wi-Fi, but connected to the Wi-Fi router, somehow the discovery package was blocked. So while I'm in the meeting room, I'm using a different router connected to my MacBook, so it cannot detect from my MacBook. Okay, let me switch back to use this desktop to see if we can see that IP address 67. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, we are not able to demonstrate right here with this current setting. Next time I need to find a USB to Lightning to Type-C in order to connect the printer. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. We talked about the browser printer to enable the print labels through the browser. There are alternatives to achieve the same functionality. So there are two alternatives. One is through the send file to printer API. This is a cloud-based API. It's also a HTTP REST API. So you can call the REST API from any application, like a browser print, like a web page, use a JavaScript. You can use the JavaScript to call this API, so which will send the request back to Zebra Cloud, and then print from the printer that connects to the Zebra Cloud. So we are not going to cover the detail of the send file to printer API here, and but we provide the link right here, so you can go there to take a deeper dive. The second choice is for you to implement your own web service with our InkOS SDK. So in our SDK, we provide the web services implementation for the Tomcat 7, Tomcat 8, and Tomcat 9. So there are links to the documentation. This is like a more learning curve. So in order to achieve that, is not very straightforward, right? The simplest, the easiest way would be just simply call this API that you can achieve to print from anywhere to any printer that connects to the Zebra Cloud. So those are the two alternatives. And the last page shows all the reference pages associated with this webinar to help you if you are interested in the printing from a browser. So now we can start to taking questions.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Wouldn't be a live webinar without some demo gremlins, so appreciate that. Thank you very much. So we do have quite a few questions. One thing I just wanted to mention before we get through those is the links that you've just seen Stephen go through there at the end of his presentation are available as a handout from the GoToWebinar sidebar. So if you just have a look in the sidebar of GoToWebinar, you should see a PDF document with all of those links so that you can click those and follow them in your own time. So we have just about 20 minutes here. We've got a few questions, so we'll make our way through these. The first question I think is actually going to be for me. So Phil is asking, when will you be resuming App Forum in the US? The last event was in 2019. So good memory, that's correct. App Forum is what we used to call DevCon. As you've probably gathered, unfortunately this year we're just doing the one DevCon event in Madrid in September, though we would like to sort of redo the events in North America and in APAC as we did previously, but that won't be this year. So potentially when we come to planning for our 2025 event, because this is a biannual event, hopefully we'll be in a position to come back to North America and the US in general. But at the moment for this year, unfortunately, Madrid is the only option. So hopefully you can make it across there. Otherwise, we'll just have to see you on these online webinars until then. So, thanks for that question, Phil. Next question from Anup. As there are a number of developers that are making the switch from Java to Flutter or React Native, I guess cross-platform languages in general, or cross-platform platforms in general, instead of the Java SDK support for the printers for Android, is it going to be feasible to develop a Flutter package?
So I think this is the question, the border question for our SDK, so not associated with the browser printer. So we are in the path of planning an update for our existing SDKs because those SDKs have not been updated for quite some time. In order to explore other programming languages for SDK, we are in the consideration, but we haven't made a final decision yet. But of course, the Java for Android would still be the one we are going to release. But whether we are going to add the Flutter or add the other programming languages, we still in the process of making a decision. But in either case, since we still will release our SDK in Java, so there will always be a way for you to integrate Java into other development languages. So I don't think that use Flutter will not be able to use our SDK, but there is always a way to call the Java native APIs through other languages.
Yeah, I would just add to that by saying, well, I guess Stephen's point is we can, create wrappers independently without Zebra's support for Flutter or for React Native. And I think some people within the community have actually already done that. So whilst we don't have official support and we're, still discussing whether or not we will do that in the future, there are third parties and people like yourselves who have sort of created those wrappers unofficially, which they then distribute through the various marketplaces for putting those out as a short-term solution or even having a stab at creating your own. So next question here from Nicholas. So are we planning to have a browser print client for Linux and Chrome OS?
No, this also depends on the reason we started with MacBook and PC, because those are the prominent two platforms. The Windows and also the MacBook, those are the two major platforms used in the industry, right? Especially the Windows. For the Linux, we haven't got the market momentum to use the Linux platform for label printing, so we didn't do that in the Linux. For the Chromebook, we haven't tried yet, but I believe it's probably fairly easy to port that to the Chromebook because all written in Java. Chromebook is supposed to support Java. Yeah, but those are good inputs. I would like to bring Spike to our development team and make a consideration. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicholas. Okay, next question here from Jim. So will I have to go through all of the setup steps for every printer I provide to my customers?
No, you don't. You only need to make sure your printer is either connected to the computer through the USB or through the network, which means the computer and the printer will be in the local network in the same subnet that will be discovered. If they are in different subnet, it may not be able to be discovered because the network setting could block the multicast packet, right? So make sure it's connected to USB or through the on the same subnet as your PC or MacBook. So you don't need any other setup. The discovery API in the JavaScript library will automatically send the multicast message to all the printers. Our printers load those messages will responded with the printer's information back to the JavaScript library.
Okay, perfect. So this next question I think we've already answered, but I'll just call it out anyway. So Damon would like to print through a Flutter mobile app. And how would he do that? So I think we've gone through the options that you have and what Zebra's plans are, but I thought I would just call that out for you anyway, Stephen, because it seems like a fairly popular request from the community.
Right. And also if you want to print from the Flutter, you can either embed it with our SDK, all right? We have LinkOS SDK supports Android, supports iOS. You can call those APIs to do the print, or you can use the send file to printer API to go through the path through the cloud, the path of the cloud, and to do the print. So that's another very simple, easy way to do the print.
Perfect. Sounds like we have a few options there. So this is a question from Robin about their specific experience. So they've noticed that the isPrinterReady function returns true when the printer is paused. Is that expected functionality? This is on the ZD500R, if that makes a difference.
No, it's not. This if the printer is paused, it's not going to be ready.
Okay.
The printer ready is true, which means the printer is not paused. Printer has media. Printer head is closed. So all those conditions will be checked in order to get the true status.
Okay, so it sounds like there may be a bug somewhere, if not with our SDK, then perhaps in your application, right, Robin. So in that case, this probably isn't the forum to do some live debugging, but we would recommend either raising a help desk ticket and going through that process, or you can, of course, go to our developer portal, developer.zebra.com, and head over to the forums, and we can see if we can take a closer look at that issue for you. So next question here from Lucas regarding the print add-on in Chrome. So is the Zebra print add-on in Chrome official? And can this be used instead of the script JavaScript that you presented?
Well, we use our library. Library is written in JavaScript. We tested it, so that's official. So any other alternatives, you have to test it out. We cannot guarantee.
Okay, yep, I think that's very clear. Thank you, Stephen. So Rito has a question about printing on Android. So during printing, the Zebra Android app does not load in the foreground. It only acts in the background as a daemon and is connected by JavaScript via port 9100. Is that correct?
Oh, okay. So the 9100 port is used by the client app as well as by the printer. So on the printer, we have 9100 port on the printer. We have one a 19100 port on our PC or on our Android device. So there are two different. They are on two different devices. So they are not interfered. So they have no relation. I just want to first point it out. The 19100 port on the PC or on the Android is used for communicate with the browser. What happens is the client app on Android or on PC or on MacBook is written in Java and use the non-known HTTPD, which is a MIDI web server, right? So that's web server use that port to communicate with its own client from the a browser, right? So that's a client connects to through the 9100 port. So this port cannot be used by any other app because that is only used for the local app to communicate to the browser. But once the local app receives the print command or print job, which needs to be sent to the printer, the client app use a different mechanism, not HTTP anymore. Use the native connection, either USB network or Bluetooth, to send the print job to the printer. And if it's a network connected printer, it will go through to the port 9100 on the printer to do the print. Hope I answered the question.
I think you got the second half of the question, but the first half was whether the client, the browser print client, comes to the foreground on Android, or does it remain in the background?
Oh, it's always in the background.
Always
yeah, it's in the background.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
you don't have to go to the foreground. I showed you. I just want to demonstrate those UI images. It always runs in background, doesn't need to go to, because the HTTP, the non-known HTTPD server is running in background on the Android device or on the Chrome or on the Windows or MacBook. They're all in the background.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for that question, Brito. Do let us know if we've answered that correctly or if you have any follow-up questions for us there. So next question here from Sigil. Does Zebra WebPrint support Unicode printing for Arabic languages?
Yes, the browser printer has no dependencies on the specific printing language. The language is decided or determined by the printer. So first, if you want to print something in a specific language, you need to make sure the font is installed on the respective printer first, right? And then when you use the browser print to print the Arabic language, for example, you need to make sure the encoding is correct. We use the Unicode encoding for all the characters. So you need to make sure you pass the correct Unicode encoding through the browser print. Browser print only knows how to send the data, right? The data would be ZPL, right? So your ZPL, you contain the characters. The characters has to be in a specific encoding, can be accepted by the printer to print this corresponding language. So the font need to be first installed on the printer and then make sure the encoding is correct.
Perfect. Yep, that's clear. Thank you, Stephen. So a question here from Mike, and this is our penultimate question. We've got a few more minutes left, so if you do have any questions, now is the time to get them in. So the question from Mike is, assuming you roll out to a new server, when you use this for the first time, what warning messages, if any, are shown in the browser? There are some third-party utilities, but they involve a download to a browser, which causes security issues and alarms users.
That's correct. When we first access, open up a web page which uses the JavaScript library, it will. When we first install the client, right? On the client, it will say you accept the local self-signed certificate. You click on accept. So that will make sure your HTTPS communication on the local client is enabled. And then when you first access a web page somewhere and try to connect to the local client, you will get a pop-up says whether you want to add this, whether you want to allow the access to the local browser print client app. If you click on yes, so that will be whitelisted, right? So we see the allowed domain and the black domain in the setting interface. So once you accept it, then you should be able to continue to access the local client app through that specific IP address, even though you made update to the web server, as long as the web address doesn't change, so you shouldn't encounter any problems. But if you change the IP address, like IP address of your web server, then that will trigger a second prompt up from on the local computer local device, and then you would have to accept again.
Okay.
So
perfect.
I don't think the update of your web server would affect or interrupt the print from the browser printer.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that detailed answer. So last question here, Stephen, for you. If ZPL is sent to the printer, but the printer was not ready, would it be processed when the printer comes online, or would the print job fail?
Okay, so this is a feature on the printer. Even though the printer itself is not ready, but it's just not ready to print, right? For example, the head is open, the media is out, the printer is not ready. But however, the printer is still communicating with the browser printer, right? So you can send the data to the printer, it will be queued in its buffer. So once the printer has the those error cleared, you close the printer head or install new print media, it will automatically print what's being stored in the buffer. So the job is not lost, but just the store that it only tells you a printer was not ready to print, but the job is not lost. But we would recommend before you send any data to the printer, check the printer status, because you want to make sure the printer in a ready state before you send data to the printer, so you can get the results straight away. Otherwise, you may get a little bit lost because there is no indication on the printer to say whether the data being received into the buffer of the printer or get lost somewhere else. So in order to eliminate those confusion, it's better to check the status of the printer first before we send the data to the printer.
Okay, perfect. All right, I think that is all the questions that we have time for today. So thank you all very much for your time, and a special thank you to Stephen for this awesome presentation. So we'll see you again next month for the talk on Android 13, and we hope that you found this very useful and beneficial. So until we see you next time, thank you everyone.